It's more than just another radio show. It's a beacon of truth. Fasten your seatbelt and find out why they call Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers the dynamic deacon. Join Deacon Harold for a fast-paced hour that sheds encouraging light on today's culture. Welcome to Beacon of Truth with your host, Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers.
And welcome to a very special edition of Beacon of Truth. I'm Ace McKay. When Deacon is traveling, we like to bring you some of his live events. And today we are taking you to Hiawatha, as Rich in Mercy is the message. It is happening at St. Elizabeth Catholic Church, and one of his great live events allows you to see and hear the dynamic moments from Deacon himself. So we're going to dive right into today's topic, Rich in Mercy, on today's Beacon of Truth.
Now, we're from Barbados. I mentioned that. We immigrated to the United States, to the state of New Jersey, when I was 3 years old. My father in my country was a very famous, popular singer and songwriter. When we came to the United States, he did not come with us. My mother wanted to escape the personal lifestyle choices that he made while he was a successful singer-songwriter. So we moved without him. He did not join our family till over a year later. And when he came, we often wished that he didn't, because we quickly found out my father loved three things in life: womenizing, alcohol, and cigarettes. My father has 15 other children with other women, besides the 4 with my mother that we know of. There's probably more than, we can verify 15, but my family tells me there's more than that. My father also drank. And if you come from a household where alcohol is an issue, I don't even have to tell you of the hurtful and painful and embarrassing moments that come from living in a house like that, where you wish to God you lived at your friend's house rather than have to go home to your own house. My father was not a man of faith. He was not baptized. He never went to church. The only time I ever heard him use God's name was as a curse. Well, eventually, you know what happened. They got divorced. After the divorce, I still maintained a respectful relationship with my father until I was accepted by the Benedictines. When I joined the monastery, out of respect for my father, I went to his apartment to explain to him what I thought I would be doing for the rest of my life. Our conversation went like this: "You're gonna do what? You're the first person in our family ever to go to college. You get a scholarship to Notre Dame. You study economics and business. And now you're gonna waste your life living with a bunch of men? What's wrong with you? What am I supposed to tell my friends?" I told him what he could tell his friends. And then I didn't speak to him for 18 years. As far as I was concerned, on that day, he died. He was dead to me. In fact, I hated that man so much that when my kids were little and they started going to school, and it was Grandparents' Day, and they asked me, "Where's Grandpa?" I said, "He's dead." I hated him, and I don't say that lightly. I hated the man. I'm enjoying monastic life. Then my mother has a massive heart attack and almost dies. I'm the oldest. I've always helped her take care of the family. So I left the monastery temporarily to take care of my mom and my sister, who was still in high school at the time. During my time out of the monastery, was only supposed to be 3 months, I went to a wedding and met the woman at the wedding who would end up being my wife. So, didn't go back to the monastery. She's from Oregon. So before I went to move out west, By this time, we're dating. My mom is convalescent. She's back to work and everything. But I'm about to move to the West Coast. Before I left, my mom says to me, son, before you leave this house, there's one thing I want you to do. Yes, Mommy. I want you to pray for your father. It's the only time I remember looking at my mother in the face and telling her no. Now, my mom was like that big, okay? But she looked at me, she goes, I don't think you heard me, son. I said, the only thing I want you to do when you leave this house is pray for your father. Okay. So what did I do? I said my prayers, and at the end, I threw in my father's name. Didn't mean it. The only reason I even did that because I promised my mother I would. But as the years ticked by, I thought, you know what? I'm going to die one day. We're going to go through the commandments. We're going to get to number 4. I need something to say. So I decided to reach out to my dad. Invitation to the wedding, no response. Birth announcements for each of the children, no response. My sister's wedding, no response. I walked her down the aisle. And I would have been very happy with that, never hearing from him again. Now we're 17 years into our estrangement. My first series begins to air on EWTN on male spirituality called Behold the Man. It starts to air internationally, including my home country of Barbados. One of my relatives sees me on TV, calls my dad, ain't that your son on TV? My son? So he flips the channel, bam, there I am, talking about what it means to be an authentically Catholic man. So he watches the rest of the episode, he's intrigued, he wants to watch the next week. He got the time right, but the day wrong. So instead of watching me, he's watching an old nun with a Bible on her lap. That last like, he's watching Mother Angelica. Now remember, my father was a musician. He did not understand how it worked. He said, who's that lady? Where's my son? Oh wait, she must be the opening act. She's gonna talk for a while, then my son is gonna come out. I never came out. But he watched the entire episode of Mother Angelica. Now later, I would ask my dad, I say, Pop, why did you keep watching when I didn't come out? He said, she just made so much sense. Now, I didn't know any of this. So another year goes by. I'm driving home. Now, I'm not a police chief at the University of Portland. I'm driving home from work. My cell phone rings. I see the New Jersey area code. Don't recognize the number. Figure it's a friend. Hello? Son? Pop? Almost crashed the car. I pulled over to the side of the road. I was like, what's going on? And he starts talking and talking. When I hung up, the phone said 31:12. 31 minutes and 12 seconds. The longest conversation we've ever had. And he spoke to me most of that time about Jesus Christ. Now you would have thought I would have been happy. Ooh, I was livid. I remember sitting, hanging up the phone, noticing the time, and yelling to myself in the car, he doesn't know Jesus, I know Jesus. I'm the one on EWTN. All that man knows how to do is destroy our family. So I said to God, I said, Lord, if this is from you, you're going to have to show me, because I don't believe anything that comes out of that lying pig's mouth. And I learned that night, you got to be careful what you ask for. I had not received the invitation to speak in my home state of New Jersey until after that phone call. All of a sudden, I get an invitation, not only to speak in Jersey, but in a parish 1 mile from my father's apartment. So I went back home. Whenever I go home, I stay with my brother. My brother made arrangements for me to see my father. My father walks in, and I'm shocked at his appearance. He had had prostate cancer. Of course, I did not know that. He's a big guy like me. He lost more than half of his body weight. And the hair's falling out. I'm just shocked at his appearance. So he says, "Hello, son, it's good to see you."
More dynamic moments from Deacon Harold himself as he is talking about being rich in mercy. We're going to take a quick break, but when Beacon of Truth returns, more live from St. Elizabeth Catholic Church in Hiawatha on today's special edition of Beacon of Truth.
Welcome back to Beacon of Truth with Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers.
It's a special edition of Beacon of Truth today as we are at St. Elizabeth Catholic Church in Hiawatha, one of his great events from just a few years ago, talking about being rich in mercy. And we also want to remind you before we dive back into today's topic that we do have our listener comment line always available, 833-288-3986 when it is after hours for our live shows. You can always leave your questions, your comments, your passions, your prayer requests, always anytime when you get some time. And thanks again for being a part of the shows and listening to EWTN Radio. More from the dynamic deacon himself as we talk today about rich in mercy on Beacon of Truth.
"Hello, son, it's good to see you." "Okay, Pop." So as I'm getting adjusted, I'm saying to myself, now, he said, "Okay, now what do I want to hear next?" "I'm sorry, son. I'm sorry. For the hell I put you and your mother and your siblings through for all those years. I'm sorry I missed your graduation because I was drunk. I'm sorry that I didn't go to any of your wrestling matches, even though you were undefeated, because I was sleeping around. I'm sorry that the one time you asked me to support you when you went into the monastery, I couldn't even do that for you. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, That's what I wanted to hear. Instead, my father says what his life is like now. So I'm thinking, okay, God taught me a huge lesson. God said, you know what happened back then, and he knows what happened back then. There's nothing either one of you can do to change that. Deal with the person I have in front of you now. So my father says to me, hey son, I'm still writing songs. You want to hear one? Okay, Pop. Now, what am I expecting? One of his typical, like we call it soca. It's like a R&B kind of dance music. Typical song, for example, he had a song called Hazel. Hazel, darling, woman, you excite me. I don't know where or how you got that body, that kind of stuff. And by the way, my mother's name was Eleanor, so I don't even know who Hazel is. So he puts on a CD, the music track is playing, and he starts to sing. Here are some of the lyrics. O Lord, sweet Jesus, have mercy on me. My eyes are wide open, yet I failed to see. Lord Jesus, have mercy. I beg you, have mercy on me. I am so sorry. Lord, forgive me. I'm depending on you. Dear Lord, I beg you, have mercy. So as he's singing this song, I'm saying to myself, you can't fake that. So when he finished singing, and I don't know what possessed me to do this, I walked up into his face. And I said, I'm going to ask you a question right now. If you've ever loved me even once, as your son, don't lie to me. If you're going to lie, then say nothing. What is all this talk about Jesus and mercy? Had I not been standing in that man's face to hear what came out of his mouth next, I wouldn't believe it. This unbaptized pagan who never went to church, who destroyed our family, looked at me with all seriousness and said, "The Blessed Mother and Divine Mercy." And I was completely stunned. I literally could not speak. I go home to Portland. My mother, when she got sick when I left the monastery, that began a slow but steady 20-year decline of her health, to the point she could not live by herself. So we moved her out to Oregon with us. I come home. "Is it true, son? Is it true?" I said, "Mommy, you can't fake what I saw." So fast forward now, a few months later, my dad says, "Hey, son, I want to come out to Portland to see my grandkids." "Okay, when can you come?" "This weekend in June." "Pop, that's not a good weekend for me." "Well, that's the only weekend I could come, so I'm coming." Which is nice, except I got a problem. I told the kids he was dead. So I did what any intelligent man would do in my situation. I went to my wife and I said, "How I get out of this?" And without missing a beat, my wife says, "Well, Jesus did raise the dead, didn't he?" And so my kids, Claire at that time was like 9 and younger. So I said, "Kids, guess what? America!" Oh, they were so excited to meet their grandfather. We prepared at home, and I picked them up, took them to the house, and it was like a Twilight Zone episode, 2 universes colliding in my living room. So it was awesome. Now, there's many things that happened that weekend. I will only mention 2. 1, my father never been to anything Catholic, but still has never been to church. Never been. I was going to a men's conference. I was not speaking, but I was going just to go because Deacon Harold needs to be fed too. So I said, "Hey, Pop, I'm going to this men's conference. You want to go?" "Yeah, son, let's go." That year at the Portland Men's Conference, who was the keynote? Father Donald Calloway. So my father, we're sitting at the table. It's the 2 of us. He's sitting across from me. Father Calloway starts to tell his conversion story. Thrown out of Japan, the gangs that he was in, the drugs, the sex. My father leans over, he goes, "That guy's a priest?" I'm like, "Yeah, Pop." And Father Calloway's telling his whole story. He goes, he got thrown out of the country and told never to come back. My father says, "He's worse than me." I said, "I don't know what to tell you, Pop." Oh my goodness. Then Father Calloway gets to the point in his story where he talks about his conversion. And who did he have an encounter with that changed everything for him? Mary. When he said that, my father grabbed my arm and shook it. "Mary, son! Mary!" I said, "I know, Pop." He goes, "I have to meet him." "Yes, Pop." Right? So Father Calloway and I, we talk every week. We're really, really good friends. We text or talk every single week. So I introduce him to my dad. My dad's excited. So the second thing is, on the way back, my mother, who was living with us, before my father came, about 10 days before he came, she had a bout of congestive heart failure. She needed more care than we could give her at home. So she was at an assisted living place. So I said, "Oh, Pop, you know what? Look, let me go by and let me drop you home, go see Mommy before the visiting hours are over, and then I'll come, we'll go out to dinner." He goes, "No, let's go see your mother." Okay. Now, he had not seen her for 20 years. So we get to the place. I don't have time to warn my mom. I said, let me go in first. So I go and sit, kiss my mom. I said, Mommy. In walks my father. Oh my goodness. The look on my mother's face. It was shock, awe, joy, anger. You know her eye. Some of you old enough remember Marty Feldman? Remember Marty Feldman, young Frank, the guy with his eyes like, my mom's eyes look like that. I get up from the bed. My father walks over, sits down where I was sitting. He puts his hands over my mother's hands. Hello, Eleanor. And they start talking, and I leave the room. And I'm thinking, so I'm standing at the nurse's station. I'm thinking, this ain't gonna take long. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. They're still in there. Now I'm getting worried. This is the first time I can remember my parents being in the same room without yelling or something being thrown. Half an hour later, my father comes out. Okay, son, let's go. Okay? So I go in and say goodbye to my mom. My mom says, who was that? I said, I know. I'm still getting used to this too. Now, to this day, I have no idea what they talked about. No clue. Here's what I know. 2 months later, I come home from work. I go into my mom's room. How'd it go today? Fine, sit down. What's going on? Remember when you moved out here, what I asked you to do? Yeah, you asked me to pray for Pop and I told you no. She said, starting on that day, I started praying a rosary every single day with the sole intention of reconciling with your father before I die. And that's what happened when he visited me that day when he was here. Wait a minute. Mommy, what are you telling me right now? You're telling me that when I drove out here, that you prayed for Pop, a rosary every day? Yes! Mommy, what happened after year 5? After year 10? After year 15? Year 20? Mommy, every day? Yes! And you never gave up? No. I don't have faith like that. A month later, my mom was dead. She trusted in Our Lady of Mercy, and she came through for my mom. Now, before I continue with the story, I want to say that there's probably people in here right now, in this church or watching online, who have been hurt deeply by somebody that you loved or by somebody that you trusted hurt you. And right now, as you sit here, you still right now are feeling the anger.
Continuing his time at St. Elizabeth Catholic Church in Hiawatha, talking about being rich in mercy. When Beacon of Truth continues, we'll conclude our conversation as he is continuing his dynamic moments. You want to find out more about when he is on the road and in your community, find out more at deaconharold.com, and more Beacon of Truth coming up next.
Welcome back to Beacon of Truth with Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers.
Continuing our special edition of Beacon of Truth today, more dynamic moments from St. Elizabeth Catholic Church in Hiawatha. So we're talking about being rich in mercy. We do want to remind you before we get back into our final segment. We've got Open Line coming up each and every day as we, of course, continue to take your questions. And for Thursday's show, Father Brian Mulady, always ready to answer. So 833-288-3986 is the number to keep handy. And always check us out online when you download the EWTN radio app. More from Dynamic Deacon as we talk today about being rich in mercy on today's Beacon of Truth.
You still right now are feeling the anger and the resentment and the hatred for that person. It may have been 20 years ago, and it's still right here. And you're wondering why you can't take your marriage to that next level. Why you can't take your relationship with your kids to that next level. Why you can't take your career to that next level. Here's the problem, we're stuck. The hatred, the anger, it keeps us back. See, God wants to give us everything, but he can't give us what we want or what we need if our hearts are filled with anger and resentment. Remember, 1 John 4:17, perfect love casts out all fear. We have to love more than be afraid. So right now, and I understand, some of you are looking for peace. What does Jesus say? My peace I give to you. Not as the world gives, do I give it to you. How do you find that peace? Because I understand some of you may have been beaten by your ex-husband. Maybe he was drunk. Maybe he wasn't. Maybe he just felt like it. Some of you right now, maybe your spouse cheated on you. And you went to Retrovie. You did all the stuff you're supposed to do, and now you're back together, but in the back of your mind, can I really trust her? Some of you, right now, as you're sitting here, as you're watching, are fighting not to take that next drink. Some of you may have been raped when you were in college or molested by a relative. Maybe you were the rapist. She had a little bit too much to drink, you took advantage of that. Maybe you were bullied because you were the kid with glasses or braces, or you had the wrong accent, or you were poor, or you were the fat kid, whatever it was. Maybe you were the bullier. Some of you maybe are so filled with anger that you tried to kill yourself. The only way to get rid of the pain is to end my life. Some of you are estranged from your children. You raised them in the faith, now that you send them off to colleges where they're nothing but indoctrination centers, and now they don't even believe in God anymore. Every day, you struggle, you pray, you cry. Some of you right now are dealing with depression. Some of you right now are anxious and worried and fearful because of what's going on in this crazy year of 2020. How do you bring healing? How do you allow God in? I'm going to give you 4 ways, because every step that I'm going to give you right now is exactly what I did to find that peace, to find that joy, to find that healing. Now, the 4 things I'm going to tell you right now are not easy. Why? Because that wasn't easy. Jesus says, if you are to be my disciples, you must deny yourself, pick up your cross, and put it down when it gets heavy. Follow me. And where are we following him to? Eternal life with God forever, but it has to go through the cross. And these 4 steps are steps to the cross. Number one, don't pretend that whatever happened to you did not actually happen. See, as human beings, sometimes we want to put a defense mechanism up. If I just pretend it didn't happen, if I don't think about it, if I create another narrative in my mind, then I don't have to deal with it, then it really didn't happen. Don't ever do that, because it will come back and bite you hard. Let me give you a real-world example. When I was still active in the parish, before I left my job and started traveling, I had left the parish for the day. As I'm halfway home, this parish secretary calls. Hey, there's this guy, he sounds really upset, he sounds distraught, and he says he has to talk to you. I said, is he a parishioner? No, but he's insisting that he has to talk to you. Okay, tell him to come to the parish. So I flipped the car around, went back to the parish, waited in the parlor. This guy shows up, never seen him before in my life. He's crying, he's disheveled. She threw me out of the house. She's gonna call the cops and she's gonna change the locks and she's gonna, I said, restraining order. I said, hold on. Sit down, tell me what's going on. So he proceeds to tell me, him and his wife have been married for 10 years. They have 2 children, a son and a daughter. She is a successful and respected practicing attorney in Portland. And because of her job, he stays at home with the kids. And which was fine. They had a beautiful routine. He would take care of the kids, and before she came home, he'd have dinner ready. He'd have the play mat out. He'd have the kids on there to be playing. She'd come home. She'd join in the fun, reconnect with the family to go eat dinner and have their normal evening routine. Except for tonight. She comes home. He's just as normal. Dinner's on the stove, playing with the kids. He's holding his daughter. His wife comes in and says, "Why are you touching her like that? Why are you what are you talking about? Don't touch her like that. Get out." What? Sweetheart, wait, what are you talking? Get out! I'm calling the cops. I'm getting a restraining order. You'll never see these kids again. Now, as he's speaking, remember, I'm still a cop. So I'm thinking as he's talking. When he finishes, I say this. Has your wife ever been molested as a child? Deacon, why would you say that? We've been married for 10 years. We've known each other for 3 years before that. We have a normal sex life. I said, here's what I think happened. I think your wife was molested as a child. And for whatever reason, tonight, it was fine. Had your son, no problem. Had your daughter, no problem. Until your daughter got to the age where your wife was first molested. And for whatever reason, your wife comes home, sees you holding your daughter, triggers a memory in her mind that she's now transferring to you. Deacon, I don't understand. I said, hold on. Do you have her parents' number in your phone? Yes. Speed dial right now. Call it and put it on speakerphone. So he did. His wife's father, his father-in-law answers the phone. He says, "Hey, Dad, I'm with Deacon Harold." And he explains the thing. I'm not going to tell your name, obviously. Was she ever molested as a child? Dead silence on the other end of the phone. In fact, it was so quiet, he thought his father-in-law hung up. "Hello? Dad, hello?" Yes, she was molested by the brother of a babysitter. When we found out about it, we got it stopped. And, we checked with the doctor and all that, and we didn't talk about it anymore. It was the family secret. And what do you think happened next? They go to court. She's a respected attorney. He's a stay-at-home dad. She goes to court and tells the judge, at this date, this time, I came home, here's what I saw. He lost his parental rights. She got her restraining order, filed charges against him. Now he's on the sex offender registry. He left they got a divorce, he left Portland. Now he's living with his parents. The man's life is ruined because his wife failed to deal with a problem from the past. If you are trying to suppress something that happened to you, don't do that. Feel it! If you have to get angry, then get angry. If you have to cry, then cry. Do not bury it. Bring it up so God can heal it. God will never force his love on you. Love that's freely given has to be freely reciprocated. Jesus on the cross is a beautiful gift of vulnerability. And it's in that vulnerability where we find strength. So don't be afraid to make yourself vulnerable before God by not suppressing what happened. 2, general confession. Now, general confession means this. You go into that confessional, and I know I'm making some work for Father Gary right now, and you confess every sin you've committed in your entire life. Now, why would you do that? Especially since you've already talked about some sins, they've already been forgiven, and it's true. When God forgives the sin, the slate is wiped clean. So why would you go back and confess all those sins again? Here's the thing. Who's often the hardest person to forgive? Yourself. Yourself. And often we think because I'm so mired in this sin, I'm so filled with anger and resentment, that I'm really far away from where I should be in my relationship with God. But here's the beautiful thing. One of my favorite parables is the prodigal son. Why? You got to understand what Jesus is doing here. When he gets to the part about the pig pen, now remember, the dietary laws in the book of Leviticus are very clear about what they eat and what they can't eat. Pigs were considered filthy, disgusting animals. So they could not eat pig, not eat pork. So when Jesus, remember, he's in the pig pen, and he's not just longing to eat the pig. That was bad enough. Jesus takes it to a whole nother level. He longed to eat what? What did he long to eat? What the pigs ate. So you got to understand, for a Jewish person, eating the pig, that's it. He longed what the pig. What do pigs eat? Garbage. I'm sure that at least one person vomited when Jesus said that. Because Jesus took it to a whole nother level. They would have said, oh my goodness, you cannot, eating the pig, that's horrible. But eating what the pigs ate, oh, you can't get worse than that. When Jesus wanted to make a point, when you are at your lowest, you are at the bottom, you can't get any worse. That's the point where you realize the only person that can help me right now is God. That's why some of your kids keep going back to rehab over and over again. You send them to rehab, they come back out, they're back on. Maybe you have some kids, because I've met families in parishes, their kids are living in the park down the street, homeless. They can't bring that child home because they leave needles around that the grandkids might inject themselves with by mistake. and they're wondering what they can do. I said, look, yes, I know you're praying for your child, but you have to pray that they reach the pig pen. Because yes, they're going in and out of rehab because they're not at the lowest point. You need to pray that they get to that lowest point. Now, as a parent, that will be painful for you because you will see your child suffer. And as Mary at the foot of the cross, she suffered watching her son. You're going to suffer watching your child. But unless that child gets so low that they finally realize for themselves, the only person that can help me now is God, that's when they start the journey back. Now, here's the best part. When you begin the journey back to God, He starts the journey. The Father, what does it say? When He was still a long way off, the Father caught sight of Him, which means what? The Father was looking for him the whole time. His Father never stopped looking for his lost child. When you go into that confessional and you've confessed the sins you've committed in your lifetime, and you realize, wait a minute, I'm not doing that sin anymore. Wait a minute. You know, I'm not doing that sin nearly as much as I was doing when I was 20. Wait a minute, I forgot, I actually, and you realize that you're actually much closer in your journey with God than where you thought, because now you're beginning the process of forgiving yourself. And here is the best part of all. When he was still a long way off, the Father caught sight of him. What did the Father do? All right, dude, I'm gonna wait right here. I'm gonna wait for you to get to me. That what the Father did? The Father did what? Ran to his child. So when we have the courage to turn back to our Father, to make those difficult steps back to Him in truth and in love, He will open wide the doors of His mercy and run to meet us. We don't have to wait. We just have to take those difficult steps back toward Him in love and in trust, and He will do the rest. 3, we have to fight with the weapons of God. Now, very quickly here. We all know one of my favorite people in the entire Bible is David, as in David and Goliath. Love that kid. Now, the Philistines and the Israelites were about to throw down. Goliath comes out from the Philistines. Hey, look, instead of all this bloodshed, here's what we're going to do. I'll represent the Philistines. You send somebody to represent Israel, we'll fight. If I win, you're our slaves. If you win, we're your slaves. And he began to mock and ridicule the armies of God. Now, what was the response of Saul? When Saul and all Israel heard these words of the Philistine, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. They're afraid of Goliath. Why? Let's take a look at Goliath. There came from the camp of the Philistines a champion named Goliath the Goth, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. A cubit is 18 inches. A span is half a cubit or 9 inches. Do the math. 9 feet, 9 inches tall. Big dude. He had a helmet of bronze on his head. He was armed with a coat of mail, and the weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of bronze. So a shekel is 0.4 ounces. Do the math. 125 pounds of armor. Now, mail, you ever see those King Arthur movies? They take off the outer armor, and they have this kind of silvery, meshy, almost fish scale-like. That's called mail. His weighed 125 pounds, 5,000 shekels. So a 9 feet 9 inch dude with 125 pounds of armor come walking up on you, you're going to be scared. But you have to ask ourselves, what is your Goliath? What is it has you so scared, so fearful, as you sit here right now, that you can't even talk about it or admit it to yourself? What is your Goliath? Now you have a choice. Are you going to be like Saul and be afraid of your Goliath? Afraid of the alcohol? Afraid of the porn? Afraid of the drugs? Afraid of facing the molester? What is your Goliath? Now, David comes onto the scene, not to fight, to get intel from his father Jesse. David hears the words of Goliath. Now, what day did David show up on? Day 40. Ooh, interesting. That number 40 shows up a lot in the Bible, doesn't it? 40 days and 40 nights in the ark, Israel 40 years in the desert, Moses getting the 10 Commandments on Mount Sinai for 40 days, twice. Jesus preparing for his public ministry, 40 days. Oh, wait, how many days in Lent? 40, well, not exactly, but 40. Here's the thing, 40, why? 40 for the Israelites was the number of gestational weeks in a pregnancy. 40 represents a time of trial, of testing, and of waiting. Because after the end of 40 days, weeks, years, God is gonna do something. David shows up on day 40. He says, are we gonna stand here while this uncircumcised Philistine mocks the armies of God? Who's gonna do something? Not me, not me, not me, not me. David said, I got this. So he goes, Saul, I'm gonna fight Goliath. Saul's like, dude, you're just a kid. This guy's gonna kill you. David said, I ain't got no time for that. Yes, I'm just a shepherd. I'm out there with the sheep. But you know what? That lion or that bear came and took that sheep. I went after that lion and that bear. I took the sheep out of its mouth. And then I killed that lion and that bear. I'll do the same thing to this Philistine. Saul's like, your funeral. And David makes his only mistake. Then Saul clothed David with his armor. Now, who does David sound like to you? He put a helmet of bronze on his head, clothed him with a coat of mail, put a sword over his armor. Who does David sound like to you? Goliath. David has the army, goes, I can't fight with this. He throws it off because David understands you cannot defeat the Goliath in your life with the weapons of man. So what does David do instead? He gets a staff in his hand. He goes to the brook. In his shepherd's bag, there's a sling. He gets 5 smooth stones and puts them in his shepherd's bag or wallet. So he goes into his shepherd's bag or wallet, pulls out a sling and 5 smooth stones. A sling and 5 smooth stones. The 5 stones represents the 5 wounds of Christ, or each of the 5, right? There are father beads. Each of the 5, joyful, sorrowful, luminous, and glorious mysteries of the rosary. I believe David fought Goliath with a type of rosary. Now, that's what you have to fight your Goliath with. Here's the best part. We Catholics have an arsenal of weapons against sin. We got novenas. We got Eucharistic adoration. We've got the rosary. We got the Chapel of Divine Mercy. Pick one. We got thousands. And fight. Here's what's going to happen. When you finally face your Goliath with your weapon in your hand, he's going to try to turn on you. That's what happened to David. David goes to Goliath. Goliath says, am I a dog that you come to me with sticks? So what's your Goliath going to say to you? And that is the Lord who saves, not with the sword, not with the spear, because the battle is the Lord's.
He's not only dynamic, but he's very transparent. Deacon Harold sharing his story and his redemption, even in the midst of his relationship with his earthly father. Good stuff today as we talk about being rich in mercy. That has been from the St. Elizabeth Catholic Church in Hiawatha. Remember, you can always catch him live and on the road when you go to dynamicdeacon.com, see when he's coming to your area. And then, of course, each and every day, Beacon of Truth right here on EWTN Radio. I'm Ace McKay, going to head out and reminding you to let God define who you are, and we'll see you again on Beacon of Truth.